Now, across Australia, young kids are going to school riddled with anxiety and fear over what insidious bullying could await them after they enter the school gates. According to News Corp's Great Australian Parents Survey, almost half of Aussie kids have been bullied at school, 16% have been bullied online, and at least 7% say it actually has led their child to have suicidal thoughts. Claire, there are calls now for a national standard to be developed to try and curb this. As a child psychologist yourself, what do you think should be included?
Well, I mean, it's not about what's included, because I think we have spoken and spoken and spoken about anti-bullying. There are millions poured into the education system when it comes to programs and initiatives and teaching kids about respectful relationships. And for decades now, in an educational manner and policies and procedures, we have spoken about anti-bullying. For me, it's about when are we going to actually implement things? And it's much like, you talk about current laws these days and whether they're actually implemented. And the same thing goes for these policies of anti-bullying. So, look, the number one thing I would suggest that has to be included is we have to return to some type of policy where there is not just a zero tolerance for bullying, because we talk about that a lot, but immediate and meaningful consequences to the perpetrators of bullying. Now, I'm one who always says we don't want to label every child negative interaction as bullying, because kids pick on each other, they fight. But when it is targeted, relentless harassment and intimidation targeted towards one student, and then we get what they call this restorative justice approach, which essentially means you sit the bully down with the victim time and time again, and we have a nice chat and we try to, be friends again. When are we going to actually just implement consequences to that bully for their actions? So that's got to be the first one. And there's got to be accountability put back on schools. Parents should have a clear pathway to escalate these concerns when bullying is not addressed properly. And I have been contacted in recent weeks by lawyers of parents who are now seeking legal advice on whether it would be appropriate to sue schools for their lack of action on the bullying towards their child. And of course, the poor mental health and outcomes for their children that they've been left with. So it's just about less talk and more action.
Absolutely. Look, something has to be done. I mean, clearly it's out of control now when you're getting possible lawyers involved. It's ridiculous it's come to this. Now, we're almost out of time.
We don't want to
Claire.
go that way, right? We don't want to go that way of like the US, where everyone sues everyone all the time. And that's what I feel. But parents, they don't feel like they've got any other options.
No, it's really sad. Look, Claire, we're almost out of time, but just very quickly, academics and students who attack Zionism can be sanctioned for anti-Semitism under a common definition approved by Australian universities, 30 of them actually, to protect Jewish Australians. Claire, how did it come to this where unis actually have to agree on student safety?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're agreeing that people shouldn't be harassed, intimidated, made to feel unwelcome because of their cultural race. And now we need a whole drawn up policy and we can't agree on the definitions and so forth. I mean, it is long overdue, but I'll just go back to the previous point and say, okay, we'll put the policy in place. The policy has to educate staff on university campuses of what do you do when you see this anti-Semitism? Is there a safe pathway for reporting it? They need to educate students on what the consequences will be, and then they need to follow through on those consequences. So it's all good having a policy written up, but unless there's action, people will just keep doing what they've always done.